looks like we got a good amount of people in here. A lot of people that I recognize. So hey everybody. Hey Simon. Hey Joe. Hey Noah. Brian. Nick. What's up? Good seeing you again.
Hey guys.
All right. So this is going to be kind of a somewhat of an unstructured presentation, but we mainly want to just go through. Basically, the idea for this is to kind of go through and really explain kind of exactly what we look at when we look at evaluating the vendors and prioritizing your link building and that kind of stuff. So for those of you guys who don't know, I'm Kevin. I'm one of the founders of Link Emperor. We've also got Bobby on the line, who's also a founder of Link Emperor.
Hi guys.
And we've also got Brett on the line, who is the head of our customer service department. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have talked to all of us at this point. We're just gonna dive right into it and go through. You know what? I guess maybe we should start with is see if there's any questions that anybody has. Oh, Max says he's on a Mac and he's got it. Let's go ahead. If you guys have just any general Link Emperor questions, go ahead and throw them into the questions box now.
Yeah, that way we can try to cover them as we go through.
And let's just take a quick poll of people that are on. How many of you guys are? I guess I just want to figure out what everyone's most interested in. You know, let us know. Are you a long-time Link Emperor user, a newbie? Are you somebody who's been around, you know, not that long? Do you think that would you consider yourself a Link Emperor, you know, novice, intermediate, expert? Wow, Noah says it's almost his 1-year anniversary. That's true, actually.
That's for a long time now.
You know, the Link Emperor's 1-year anniversary is like a week from Sunday, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, Brian's been around for almost a year now, too.
All right, so I'm going to go through, I guess, things from the beginning, and just focusing on the idea of this is to talk about basically the math behind it and different things like that.
Yeah, we've got a pretty good mix in here. I see a lot of people who are pretty new in the past month or two. Then there's a lot of people who have been around for a long time and a few intermediates too.
All right, so the first thing we want to talk about, I kind of want to just go through. How do you want to do this, Bob? You want to just go through the basic? I mean, there are a couple obvious things that everyone wants to know about, right? So here we have a sample campaign for Chicago bankruptcy attorney. We set this up a long time ago. But all the things that we're going to show kind of still apply, but we don't even have any keywords on it, so that's not a good one. Let's instead use this PubCon campaign. So we created this fake campaign for PubCon. For those of you who don't know about PubCon, PubCon is a search engine optimization conference that happens right here in Las Vegas. The next one's in about 2 months. We kind of like it, sort of. It's good, but I don't think it's the best conference, but we like it because it's in Vegas. But anyway. So the one thing I want to talk about first is this screen, because this screen I think is one of the single biggest things we get confusion on. Specifically, what's the deal with the on-page score, and what's the deal with the search volume, and what's the deal with the target value?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, just before we start, I mean, in the email that I sent out, we had a couple topics that we promised to talk about. One is how the target values work. Another is how we decide which vendors get which orders. So the vendor allocation algorithm, how we prioritize our link building in terms of, I guess, the allocations of the different services that we like to prioritize, and then what our inspiration was for building the system and kind of how it grew from the beginning. So I don't know if we want to start with that or if we want to just jump right into the screen or whatever. But
well, I'm down to go back and talk about some inspiration stuff. Do you want to go over that right quick, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a good introduction, I guess. It kind of explains the way that we built this thing out and how it started and how it evolved. So what we were doing when we first started Link Emperor was basically I was doing a lot of SEO myself for a lot of different sites. I had e-commerce stores and I had some affiliate sites and things like that. And back then, Kevin didn't know a lot about SEO, but he had a really strong programming background. So I was teaching him a lot of stuff about how to rank his own personal sites in Google and different things that I was doing. I had like a ton of outsourcers and all people doing a lot of manual stuff, and some people were running like SE Nuke and running some different automated link building programs. But it was all kind of it was all kind of a mess, you know, like I had to kind of have my own systems all figured out on my own, and everything was kind of, you know, all these different outsourcers doing everything, and it was a headache. So Kevin started slowly kind of automating different things that our outsourcers were doing manually. And then he kind of created a little dashboard for all these things, you know. So we had a lot of like blog networks and stuff, a lot of auto blogs that we were using back then, and different things like that. And it actually started out as an auto blog link management tool. It didn't even have external link builders or anything like that. It was really just something to manage how we were allocating our anchor text and our keywords and stuff like that across like hundreds of different websites, auto blogs, and, you know, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of different pages, because we knew certain keywords are worth more, certain keywords are worth less. So, you know, we don't want to just be building equal amounts of keywords across the board, equal amounts of links across the board to the different keywords. What we want to do is spread them out in some sort of an intelligent manner so that we can say, all right, this keyword's more difficult, so we're going to build 10 times as many links here as we build there, and things like that. And over time, we started to look at different factors, such as, you know, what makes a keyword truly difficult. You know, like there's an SEO Moz difficulty score that we were pulling in that worked out okay. And we ran a lot of different tests at one point, right, Kevin, to try and figure out if we could sort of backwards analyze or just kind of figure out what were some of the factors in the algorithm, or what were some of the more obvious tips that we could take to figure out what keywords were difficult. You know, for instance, like if a keyword has a PPC on the page, it's almost definitely going to be more difficult than a keyword that has no PPC, right? So, you know, we took a look at that to try and see if over the course of, I don't know how many keywords. You remember how many we were analyzing back then?
We took a look at a lot of keywords, and basically what we really kind of realized is that we put a lot of effort into really overcomplicating this tab at first, and we were like you said, we were really looking at things like detailed looks at, you know, we use this thing called IBP. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It's like Internet Business Promoter.
Yeah, Internet Business Promoter.
And what it does, it goes on like it goes to all your competitors and runs all these things on them, and it tries to tell you like exactly what to do based on what your competitors do. And so we spent a long time kind of going down that path. And then we really, you know, at the end of the day, we looked at what we had done and we said, this is, you know, we're kind of we're trying to be too smart. And it just wasn't working out. You know, it wasn't getting us the results that we wanted.
Yeah, we just weren't seeing the correlation between what we thought should be a difficult keyword to rank for and what actually was turning out to be difficult based on our link building. So we decided to simplify it a little bit and just kind of run with that SEO Moz difficulty score that they were using based around Moz ranks and stuff like that, right?
Well, so what we eventually ended up doing is we ended up settling on kind of what you see here, which is, you know, we kind of look at the following factors. Like when it comes down to trying to rank a page, what we found that is the biggest predictor is the search volume. You know, and it's a great predictor just because most people don't go for low search volumes. Search volumes that are really high just has more competition. We found that your on-page optimization really matters. It's way easier, obviously, to rank for keywords that are in the title of your page or on your page. And if you don't have titles, if you don't have them on your page at all, we found that it was really hard to rank for them. The other thing that we looked at is obviously your current rank. If you're already on the first page, it shows that Google already likes your site, and there's a reasonable chance that more backlinks, especially if you haven't been doing a lot of link building, are going to move it up. So I want to talk about kind of how the target value works now, and then I want to also talk about what we're going to be doing to it in the future, because I think that there are ways that we can make it better, and I kind of want to use this as a bit of a brainstorm with you guys as well, to kind of hear what you guys think. Because I'm not 100% sure that we're doing it right. At the end of the day, our goal is to have Link Emperor be the most automated platform possible, and I want it to just work for you, and I want it to just automatically improve your business, kind of as hands-off as possible. So we're kind of nudging to that direction as best we can. We're already quite there. Obviously, it's already working for us, and it's already working for most of you guys. But we want to just keep getting there and get it even better. We're getting some questions coming in.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions. Let's try to get to those when we can. But there's a lot of random topics too. So I think we should try to focus on kind of our stream of consciousness right now while we're going through this stuff, and then try to break off to the different things.
All right, so let's first talk about this rank column. So when we first launched Link Emperor, we were pulling these ourselves using a homegrown rank checker. And we did that for as long as we could, and at some point we just kind of weren't able to keep up with the volume relative to the amount of customer growth we were getting. Doing Google rank checking, for those of you who don't know, in bulk is really, really, really hard because Google will start blocking your IPs. And when you're doing something like 1 million keywords, which is what we deal with, it really means that you need a lot of IPs. And we went through proxies after proxies after proxies, and we couldn't get it to work. So now we outsource our rank checking to a wonderful company that you guys might have heard of called Authority Labs. They also do the rank checking for Raven Tools. It's basically like 4 guys who spend their whole life making sure that rank checking works. So we're actually we feel really good about our rank checking. We think it's pretty accurate. Whenever I do spot checks on it, I tend to find it accurate. I mean, let's check one. Here we have PubCon showing 3 for a search engine marketing conference, and then when I click on it, it is number 3. So I do feel really good about our rank checking. I encourage you guys to be skeptical about rank checking too, because a lot of these guys don't do it well.
I mean, it changes. It's a lot of it is a matter of if you've got certain keywords shuffle around a lot, and sometimes I think it was right when they checked, but the rankings change on a daily basis. I mean, some of the keywords that I track absolutely change on a daily basis. So when we're doing weekly rank checking, it's it can be kind of tough, but it's in order to do daily rank checking, it's 7 times more calls, so it's a little bit crazier. And for the vast majority of keywords, they don't move that much. So overall, it's pretty good. I think we're happy with the weekly rank checking for the most part.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, which is that we currently check ranks every week. We get a lot of people who ask for daily rank checking. We've kind of resisted that. The main reason for resisting it is it would just 7 times our costs, so it would mean we'd have to offer fewer keywords or raise the price, which we don't really want to do. But the other kind of reason is that we almost think that daily is a little bit too crazy to be checking in on things. I mean, I know that especially it can be awkward if we happen to catch on our weekly check while you're bouncing around or something. But I also think that a lot of SEOs kind of just infer too much from watching their daily rankings.
Yeah, I mean it can be a really addictive time waster to actually just be looking at your rankings every single day and seeing how they change. So I don't know. I don't think that it's absolutely necessary. I think it just comes from a lot of people who really like to check in on that stuff constantly, maybe a little too much.
All right. So Noah actually has a question, which is what I was going to get to next, which is the search volume column and how accurate is it? So here's the deal with the search volume. When we first launched, we were pulling these directly from the Google Keyword Tool. And we were doing it using the Keyword Tool's API, which runs through AdWords. And we were getting the exact volumes as the Keyword Tool, spits out. Sometime shortly after we launched, I don't really know if it was like 2 months or 3 months in, Google decided they didn't want SEO companies using the AdWords API for SEO. They only wanted you using it if you were doing PPC management. So we fought back and forth with Google a lot on that, tried to get access to that back.
I don't even know if it was just SEO companies. It just seemed like anybody who was using the API in general who wasn't spending a lot of money on AdWords was kicked off all the same day. It was like this massive thing on the forums where everybody was complaining and nobody was responding.
Yeah, it seems like to get your API back, they wanted to see you doing AdWords buying with it, as much buying as you were researching.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what level they would need for that, but I think it would be pretty high.
If any of you guys know how we can get that back, we would love to talk more. So we considered alternatives. We considered scraping it, which is really kind of hard to do at the scale we operate on. We looked at a couple other things like Word Tracker. We eventually ended up settling on a service called SEMrush, which many of you guys have probably heard of. So what SEMrush does is they basically scrape the stuff from Google and they save it on their side, and they do this in extreme bulk.
About once a month, right?
Yeah, I think about once a month. So I don't know how they get away with it, but they, have a team that obviously works really, really hard on being able to do that. So we've got to deal with SEMrush, and we pull this information from there. So the answer is it's not as accurate as if we had got it from Google Keyword Tool directly. We are going to admit that. However, with that being said, we have found that it's pretty accurate. We did when we first started looking at it. We ran a bunch of tests comparing the two, and we found that they were largely similar. The biggest issue with it is that there are a lot of keywords that SEMrush just won't know about at all. That maybe get in a low amount of search volume. So maybe it should be saying something from 10 to 100, and it ends up saying 0. That's, I think, the biggest problem. Noah's question is, he's got one where it's saying the search volume is 1 million, and you think that's too high. That's, well, he says it's probably close. Okay. Well, yeah, the answer is, I have no idea on any given term level whether it's high or low. But I do think that in general we find that it tends to match up with Google Keyword Tool pretty well. The other thing that's important to mention is that these are exact local searches for the country you selected on the campaign. So that's actually the main reason, and some of you guys might not know this, that's the main reason that we only offer 9 different countries on the campaign tab. It's because our data providers only support these 9 countries. Or I guess 10. Like 10 countries.
Yeah, I think they updated 1 or 2 since we started.
So
but yeah, I mean, if you want to go and check, I mean, we trust the Google Keyword Tool more than anything else. I think pretty much everybody agrees that it's the best, freshest data. And if you want to check between the one and the other, just go and check out the Google Keyword Tool and see what happens for local exacts. But another thing to keep in mind, though, is that it's only one piece of a factor in the overall algorithm. So, if it says that it's 600 and it says 900 on Google Keyword Tool, the real difference there in terms of the outputted target value is going to be pretty small. So I don't think that that's going to be something that's going to majorly affect your link building, even if the numbers are completely off. Now, if it is a 0, and Google Keyword Tool is showing something, then that's probably something you might want to look at and maybe manually edit your target value if you notice something like that. But other than that, it's only one piece of the algorithm, which has a lot of different components, and we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Absolutely. So Noah is asking another question. I'm going to try to pull up another account that I can use to show it, because I think we have some stuff that I could actually demo on it. Do you mind if I pull up some of our own sites, Bob, just to kind of demo another column?
Go for it.
All right, cool. So one of the other, let me show, because Noah's asking about our Google Analytics integration. So I just want to show an example of a site that has that. So a lot of you guys, I don't know if you guys know this, but one of the things you can do with Link Emperor is you can link your Google Analytics to Link Emperor. So here we have another site. This is actually one of our own that is basically a Las Vegas VIP service that we own. So one of the things that's really cool is if you have your Google Analytics linked up, Link Emperor will give you another column, which is visits last month. So this visits last month column is actually coming straight from your analytics. Now, what this actually is a trailing 30 days calculation. But we don't update it every single day because we're not trying to, we don't want to load Google's servers too heavily. So we update it once a week for a trailing 30-day calculation. So what's So what we do internally is we take the visits last month, and we take your current rank, and we use a formula to update what we think the search volume is based on the actual visits that you're getting. So let me try to explain that more detailed. So here's a great one. Here we have the site is ranked number 7 for this keyword bottle service Las Vegas. However, so SEMrush thinks the total volume is 22. However, we got 47 hits from it. So what we do is we extrapolate from that and say, the search volume is probably a lot higher. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that the search volume is like 500 and we're only getting 47 because we're number 7. You know, maybe we have more compelling title tag or something like that. But the basic idea is our algorithm, when we calculate out the target values, will take into account the fact that we know that the traffic is obviously higher. Does that kind of make sense to people?
Yeah, and I think it takes into account the position that you're at and what's expected as a percentage of that first page click-throughs, right?
Exactly. So we use the percentages that were published by AOL when they dropped that study of exactly how many people click each position. So they may not be 100% accurate, but it's a good estimate, and obviously in this case it's a better estimate than what we're getting from SEMrush. So our whole goal here is just to try to back out the best estimates of these things kind of as best we can. Someone just asked, do we integrate with Clicky? We do actually integrate with Clicky. You can use that right now instead of Google Analytics.
And Brian asked, does this work the same way with Clicky?
The answer is no. And the answer is that Clicky's API doesn't 100% give us exactly what we want. They do not break down visits by keyword and lander. They break them down by keyword or lander. So what you can't do is give you the view that we're showing you right now that has keyword lander visits in a row, if that makes sense. This is highly disappointing to me. I think we should yell at Clicky and try to get them to offer that so that we can show you this view, because you're absolutely right that it doesn't work as well with Clicky. But with that said, we do still take that information into account in the formula, understanding that we can't get it at a keyword level.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a huge factor, right?
Okay, Roger and Nina both ask, where are you getting this? This shows up if you integrate your Google Analytics account. So let me show you how to do that. You come over here and click on, let me go back to this.
Yeah, you shouldn't, I don't know if you want to show the personal analytics.
Yeah, let me go back to this one. What you do is you come to Account tab, and then you click on External Linked Accounts. And then you click on Link New Google Analytics Account. You type in your email address, and then it'll jump you over to Google. You integrate that stuff, and then it'll bring you back to Link Emperor, and then you're all set. What you do once you have that done is you need to make sure you go to the Sites tab, add the site here. I don't have analytics set up on this one, but if I did, there would be another option that says, do you want to pull from analytics right here? And you want to make sure to set yes on that. Does that kind of make sense? So once you do that, you will then get this extra column here, which shows you the visits from last month. And I recommend that everyone do it because it does help our algorithm do a better job of calculating your stuff. All right, so Nina says she linked Google to her account, but it doesn't appear. You probably need to make sure to add it in the Sites tab. If you don't have it in here, jump over to the Sites tab, add it. If you do have it in here and it's not working, you might have added it before you added Google Analytics, so I would just delete it and add it again. All right. Someone asked about Piwik. We looked into integrating with Piwik, and their API just doesn't really seem to give us exactly what we need. If anyone has a connection with a developer over there, we'd love to talk to them, but it looks like their API does not break out visit by keyword, which is really the data that we need. So Raphael asked, what if I have both? I don't know, like both types of analytics, then I would use Google. And then to answer one other question that somebody had, so this search volume column right here, what this is supposed to be, my understanding of it, is this is the monthly search volume based on an annualized average. So for seasonal keywords, for example, Christmas trees or something like that, what this is really going to show is the average as if all that traffic was uniform across the year. But in reality, it's probably all going to be at Christmas. So I did want to clear that up. That actually, I think, makes it work out better for us because it basically, we want to be link building year-round to that keyword so that when Christmas time comes, you're ranking for it as opposed to trying to just, launch a campaign right at Christmas.
All right. Well, let's move on to the on-page scores now.
Sure. So the on-page score, even though we present it to you with 2 decimal places, is really actually, it only has 3 values. It has 0, 1, or 2.5. And this kind of comes from what we were talking about earlier, where we were originally going crazy with this, and we were actually doing stuff IBP style and looking at your number of H1 tags, looking at where in the page it is, keyword density, all this kind of stuff, and we studied fancy formulas, and we played with a lot of fancy formulas, and we ultimately decided that what we were doing was making it worse. So we decided, all right, let's look at this again and figure out how can we simplify it to actually work. And so what we did was we came up with a 3-level score, and we came up with the 3 levels based on testing. We basically give you 1 point if the keyword's on the page. And we'll count that even if the keyword is split up. So basically we just want to make sure, is the phrase, are all the words in the keyword on the page, basically. And someone asked about stop words. We are intelligent enough to remove stop words too when we look at that. So like words like A and V, things like that. And what we do is we give you 2.5 points on it if that keyword is in your title. And the reason why is we have found that there is a big advantage into having the keyword in your title.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a 0 if you can't find all of the keywords anywhere on the page. So if just one of the words is missing, even if the other ones are on there, then that'll give you a 0 for the on-page score.
Exactly. So the idea behind the on-page score is we really see this as more of a sanity check to make sure that you don't start link building to something dumb. So that's kind of the on-page score. I now want to talk a little bit about target value and kind of how it works and exactly what goes into it. So basically the idea behind the target value is this. It's supposed to represent the best way to spend your link building. It doesn't mean the keywords with the most traffic. It doesn't mean the keywords where you're doing the best. And it doesn't mean the keywords where you're doing the worst. It's basically our assessment of where do you think we should be building links to best improve your business. So here's how we come up with it. The first thing that we look at is we try to figure out where did the keyword come from. So some keywords come from you added them yourself. You went to the keywords tab and you clicked add. Other times we can pull keywords based on your Google Analytics. So as I was showing you, if you enable Google Analytics on your site and Google Analytics shows that you're getting traffic in on keywords that you didn't add, we will add those to your list automatically as long as you didn't turn that off. So the first thing we do is we look at that. So if you manually added the keyword, we always are going to consider it at that point. If the keyword came from analytics, we are only going to give it a target value if it looks like you're already ranking, and it looks like you're either getting some traffic in the last month, or we show that there's a search volume. So the basic idea of that is to filter out keywords that you may have gotten traffic on, but you shouldn't be link building to because they're never going to come up again.
Yeah, you find actually analytics, I mean, if you've ever really dug through your analytics deep into the single visit and double visit or triple visit keywords that you've gotten, Google will rank you for some really strange things just for a short period of time sometimes. So You don't want to just be picking up all that feedback in here and trying to link build all those crazy terms. So basically we needed some sort of a way to filter those out somewhat intelligently so that we would only be getting the ones that actually make sense to pull in as keywords for your campaign, especially if you have a really big like authority type site or something that's been around for a long time. You can pick up on really weird stuff.
All right, so once we decide, okay, we think that there's traffic, we think it's worth going for this, what we then do is we try to figure out, okay, how much traffic is there for this keyword? So the simplest thing that we look at is if all we have to go on is the search volume, we're going to go by the search volume. That's the best we got. That's what we can do. If we have your Google Analytics, we do kind of like what we talked about before, where we'll try to back out what we think the actual search volume is based on your rank and the amount of traffic that you're getting. So once we have that number, that's how much traffic we think is out there. Then what we try to do is figure out, we basically take that and we multiply it straight up by our on-page score. So if your on-page score was a 0, we say we're not even going to build to this. And if your stuff is in the title tag, you're basically getting a boost. Then what we do is we scale it by this value of a visit here. So if you guys didn't know about this feature in Link Emperor, what you can do is when you actually add a lander, it asks you, what is the dollar value of a visit to this lander? You might have a lander that sells a thing that costs $5 and makes you $1 for every sale. And you might have another lander that sells a thing that costs $500 and makes you $200 for every sale. So we want to take that into account, obviously. You know, it's all the pages on your site are definitely not created equal, and you probably know which pages are better pages to get people in on. So Link Emperor wants to know about that too. So you should definitely use this, you know, at least to the best of your ability here. Then the next thing that we do.
That's also a nice way to, just before you move on,
Sure.
I think a lot of people manually edit their target values rather than manually editing their value of a visit. And the nice thing about going and editing the value of a visit is that you're not overriding the target value, so you're giving the system the ability to kind of change over time and make up its mind about where you should be building. Whereas if you manually override the target value, then it's going to be stuck at that point, and at some point you should go back in and probably take another look at it and maybe re-edit it. But it's nice to be able to just use that value of a visit, because that's actually a very strong indicator in terms of the end target values. So it's worth taking some time to think about.
Absolutely. One other thing that we look at here is we look at doing what we call boosting you based on where you are currently ranking. And kind of through testing, we found that if you are on the top of the second page, no one goes to the second page. Getting you from the second page to the first page is the single best thing we can do to improve traffic in terms of like a link economy basis. You know, if you happen to have a whole bunch of keywords that are 11 through 14, if we can jump those up to the first page, that is way more useful than getting a new keyword up to number 11. So kind of the idea we do here is when we take that, when we're calculating the target value, we apply a boost factor based on where you're currently ranking. And so the highest thing that we prioritize are things that are on the second page. And the reason for that is because you're probably getting no traffic on those, but you're so close. So Google has already shown that it likes you for that page. You know, if you're ranking number 11, Google doesn't have a problem with you. They're not giving you a penalty at that point. You know, they obviously like your page. They just haven't been convinced that it's ready to go to the first page. So for those, we tend to prioritize those with a big boost. Similarly, we do a similar kind of effect for things that are kind of down the second page or on the third or fourth or even fifth page. We kind of use like a logarithmic scale that trails off on those. So, you know, basically the idea is once you start getting into the top 50, Link Emperor is going to start steamrolling that one a little more and hitting it more and more and more and more. Once you get to the first page, we back off a little bit, but we still go if you're toward the bottom. You know, if you're rank 5 through 10, we're still hitting you with almost the same amount of power that we were hitting you when you were on the second page, but not quite as much. When you get up into the top spots, we actually slow it down. And the reason for this is kind of a lot of reasons for it. The first one is that chances are you've already built a lot of backlinks to this thing that Google hasn't found yet. So even if we stop entirely, you're probably still going to keep going up. It's kind of like the idea is kind of like hitting the brakes. You know, you hit the brakes before you get to the red light, not right at it. You know, because you're gonna keep going, even if you're not stepping on that gas pedal. We don't stop entirely, though. Even if you're number one, we don't stop entirely. And the idea, the thinking for that is just that it's obviously a good keyword. It's obviously making you money. And it's worth continuing to boost it up.
Well, also the link velocity. You don't want to just show that there are no links coming in, because then Google might take that as a signal that your site's not quite as relevant and give other people an opportunity to jump to the number one spot. So it's nice to have some sort of a maintenance level. You reading the questions right now?
I am reading the questions right now. Lawrence says he can't hear me. The rest of you guys can still hear, though, right?
I think people can hear because we're getting a lot of questions.
Now he hears. All right.
Noah had a good question. What happens if we see a drop from position 3 to position 5, or some kind of a negative movement?
The way we handle that right now, so let me kind of clarify this. We calculate these target values. We recalculate them once a week. Or actually, well, let me clarify. We recalculate them anytime any of the source information changes. So we update ranks once a week, and we update Google Analytics once a week. We re-update search volumes, I think, quarterly. So anytime any of that stuff changes, we recompute the target value. If we see a rank drop, the way we handle that right now is we just kind of kick you down into the next bucket. So if you fall from page 1 down to page 2, we're going to treat you as a page 2 keyword again and hit you with that heavier amount. Another question, what happens if you manually enter target values? Manually enter target values will override everything. So in case you guys didn't know this, you can click on one and actually change it. And what that will do is it'll show it up in green. And that means that you've overridden it. And that is always going to stay at whatever you set it to.
So to go a little more in detail, there a 200 gets twice as much link building as a 100. It's an exact difference there. So the 200 is going to get, how many times more than a 30, like 6 more times plus. And also you should show them the way to get rid of that too. If you want to just go back to the default, is just delete it,
blank it out,
and then hit enter, and it'll show you what it used to be. So 7.3 is what it thinks it should be at right now based on the algorithm.
All right, so we're getting a lot of questions in here. Someone asked, why would I override a target value? Well, the answer is that maybe you know better. Like, for example, maybe you know that 2011 is not a good keyword to be ranking for because it probably doesn't get a lot of searches. So you might want to make that a 0. You might really want to get rid of the keyword, but if you're still getting traffic on it, it might be fun to keep it around and see if just to monitor that.
Well, the one thing that we haven't mentioned yet that's probably the most important is that the upper level difficulty change, where we take away the target value on that.
That's true too. So Link Emperor by default has a bit of a break in there that will automatically set target values to 0 for any keyword that we deem to be too hard. Where do we come up with whether a keyword is too hard?
Basically, the idea here is that, for one thing, it's kind of to protect people from themselves, because the target value, if you go after one keyword that's like 1 million searches and the rest are a lot less, then you're obviously going to be getting just a vast amount of link building to that one keyword, so it kind of throws things off occasionally. It also is kind of to help noobs. Basically, if they're putting just too many difficult keywords in there, and it just the algorithm thinks that it's just not reasonable to try and rank for all of those at the same time, you're going to spread yourself way too thin, and it's you're not going to be going through a proper link building sequence to be able to achieve more difficult rankings. It just kind of cuts the brakes there and says, we're not going to go on that. I guess it doesn't cut the brakes; it hits the brakes. If it cut the brakes, we would be just going full speed ahead. But
sure. Well, let me answer Joe's question by explaining how it works. So okay. what we deem as too hard is, it's probably going to surprise you, is what we ended up settling on for this. But we actually found that this worked better than all of the more complicated things that we had tried, and I'll explain why. So we consider a keyword to be hard if it gets more than 2,000 exact searches a month, and you don't rank at all, not in the top 100. So the thinking behind it is this: if your keyword is say the hard keyword that you're going for is something like Las Vegas. If you're not in the top 100 at all for your site, it's going to be, and you're, like, let's say that I've got this site where I'm ranking for tons and tons and tons of Las Vegas keywords, but I'm not ranking for the keyword Las Vegas itself. What we think is better to do is to keep link building on the, what we call the second tier keywords, Las Vegas hotels, Las Vegas conferences, Las Vegas whatever. Because if you do that, you're eventually going to start ranking in the top 100 for just the keyword Las Vegas. And we think that at that point, then we kind of know that your site's ready for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it also makes sense in terms of trying to get the best bang for your buck and to be able to get the most visitors in as quickly as possible. Because your strategy should always be go after the less difficult keywords first so that your domain can kind of build up a lot of different IP diversity and a lot of different page rank and stuff like that. And it's easier to rank for those. So once you start ranking for the easier keywords, you're already getting some visitors in there, and there's less of a wait time before you have the chance to make some sales. It's just a kind of a sensible bootstrapping method towards SEO, right? So then once you've kind of tackled some of your easier keywords and you're starting to show up for some of the mid-difficulty, then start building on those and eventually build your way up to the difficult ones. Once you're really a heavy hitter, you've got tons and tons of links pointing to your site, and you think you might have a shot at going after it. But it doesn't make any sense to go right for the top right from the beginning.
All right, so what if we got a question, what if there is no target value? That means that we won't link build to it. So why would that happen? It would happen if your on-page score was 0, the search volume was 0, and you're unranked, or the target value calculated out to be 0 for any other reason, including that we thought it was too hard. The question, we got a couple questions here. So the question is like, this one's obviously very confusing for a lot of people, and this is something that we've been tackling in our engineering meetings lately, and we're actually considering different options for fixing this, but I will talk about, we got a question, what does the absolute value of a target value mean? Like, someone says, my screen that I'm sharing shows 36, but theirs shows 174. Does that mean they're getting 6 times as much link building as me? The answer is no. So what these are is strictly a relative value. So depending on a number of factors, if you're going for small niches, they're going to show up smaller just because the search volume is one of the big components. If you're going for bigger niches, they're going to show up bigger. But at the end of the day, we compare the target values relative to each other. So, this 36 is getting about twice as much as this 19.
And how does that work when you're jumping from one campaign to the next? Say somebody has 25 different campaigns going on.
They are still compared equally. So if you've got a 36 in one campaign and an 18 in the other, then that 36 in the one campaign is going to get twice as much. Let me back up a sec. This assumes that you are blasting all of your campaigns together.
Right, so if you're using campaign allocations, that's going to override that, and it's going to say that the top limit of how many links can be built to that campaign is based around the percentage that's assigned to it.
Correct. So
Sounds kind of confusing.
Does this make sense?
Does that make sense to you guys? Type in the box, or are you guys confused?
All right, so let's go through this. When we first launched Link Emperor, this tab didn't exist, this campaign allocation tab, because the original idea was that the right way to prioritize between the different campaigns was with what we showed you earlier, which is this value of a visit. If one of your businesses makes you a lot more money than another of your businesses, it makes sense that that one should get most of your link building.
Right. Well, also, we worked only for ourselves, and we never had any clients, so we didn't exactly build the system initially, keeping in mind that certain people have client budgets and stuff like that. So we kind of had to go in and create something that would override that for people who are only budgeting a certain amount of money for a certain client per month.
Right.
So that's where we created these campaign allocations.
Sure. So what we did was we came back and we created this screen. What this does is this lets you override and say, I want it so that this campaign gets exactly 50 This one gets exactly 25, and this one gets exactly 25. So if you are using that, that will take precedence over the target value in between, in choosing between the campaigns.
Also, if you're seeing some weird numbers here, like negative credits and 909 or 99,996 campaigns, that's just because we're on a demo account, so it doesn't have any limits on it. It's kind of just ignore that.
Exactly. How do you remove a campaign from the list? On that list that I was just showing, you just set it to 0 is what you would do, Noah. Let's see what else is in here. Lucas is one of our vendors, asks, is this webinar meant for customers rather than vendors? The answer to that is yes, but we're going to talk about the vendor stuff too, so you might want to stay on. It's going to be some interesting stuff. All right, I just want to finish out some of these questions around link building, and then we'll get into vendors. Is that cool with everybody? All right, so here's a few questions.
Yeah.
Someone asks, what is the right way to do local keywords? So, for example, they're asking about bankruptcy. Let's show you. What I would do for bankruptcy attorney is I would actually use the keywords. I would do keywords like bankruptcy, attorney, Chicago. Bankruptcy attorney, Chicago, Illinois, things like that. A great way to get good local keywords, by the way, is to use our keyword suggest tool. I don't know if you guys have seen this. We have a video on this, which I recommend you check out. It's on if you click on Getting Started Guide, it's linked from that. But basically, if you throw in URLs of your competitors, we will spit out this keyword tree that gives you a really good amount of keyword suggestions. This is how I would do local keywords for bankruptcy. So Robert Jones asks a very good question, which is he's saying that he's got 25 campaigns, but campaign allocation won't let him allocate more than 6% per. Robert Jones, I think that's because you have a very old account or a special account. Generally, that stuff works out. But basically, the point on this is we set minimums on these to prevent you from having campaigns that just don't get any link building at all. So we set these minimums to kind of guarantee that each campaign gets enough link building to be able to operate for the month. So if you find that it's not letting you split things up as much as you want, you should talk to us, because it means that we probably think you need more credits. And we'll get into why that is in a sec when we talk about how the link building vendor stuff is allocated. All right, so do you want to go to vendor stuff?
Yeah, why don't we talk about, it's not just specifically for vendors. Basically, what we're going to talk about is how we decide which vendors are getting how many orders and how we're spending your money across the various people who are trying to earn it. So we've got a lot of different vendors in here. A lot of people are competing for your business, and they have varying quality, not only between the different services that they're offering and the different people who are offering it, but also just from week to week, the lists of links that they're able to build to can change pretty quickly. So we're constantly, we have an algorithm that's constantly working on figuring out what the best opportunity is for you in terms of where you should be getting your links from. So why don't we go into a little more detail. This will be good for the vendors because they can see how to get a little bit of an advantage if they can how they can improve their harvesting and stuff like that. But it'll also be useful for users because you can see how we evaluate our providers.
Yeah, and Bob, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to show the actual data of just one provider, if that's okay, just one service, so they can kind of know what's up.
All right.
Do you mind that? I just kind of want to. I want to just let them see what we're calculating.
Yeah, sure. I think that'll be fine. I don't think that's anything too secret, right?
All right. Cool. All right. So the first thing we should talk about is, so we were on the campaigns tab. Now we're jumping over to the link building tab here. Let's go ahead and start off with link type priorities. This is the biggest thing here. So here are the link building types priorities. So what we do is we break down all these services into rough categories based on what they are. It's really hard on some of these things because some things don't fit really well into a category. But at the end of the day, we try to break it down into these categories. By default, what we try to do is use each category equally. The thought behind this is simply we don't know what's going to get slapped next. We don't, it's who knows. Who would have thought it would have been private blog networks? I wouldn't have. I would have expected it to be one of these other ones. So we started out in the middle. But what's cool about these sliders is you are free to set these up however you want. If you want to go, max article, no blog, no forums, press releases, you can kind of do it however you want. These sliders are linear, so if you've got one at max and one in the middle, it means you're going to get twice as many of that one as this one. So this is kind of basically the idea of this screen is to kind of set up your preferences, if that makes sense, of where you want, what kind of links you want to have built. We also have this clean filter, which allows you to tell us, hey, I don't want links coming from adult sites. The way this is implemented is that we implement it on a vendor service level. So we find if a vendor ever submits adult sites, we disqualify that entire service. That's the way our adult filter works. The reason that we kind of don't recommend it, just for future reference, is that it just decreases the number of services that you can get. For people with clients, we recognize that you might need it. Personally, we tend to for our own sites we keep it as this. Now I want to talk about we could come back. Let's come back to this anchor text thing because I really want to get into So we've got these
let's talk about that afterwards. Let's focus more on the algorithm for the link building vendors first.
Here's how it works. So we've got your preferences. Then we take your preferences, and then we try to say what we actually do every day is we say, okay, we want to get this person exactly these services based on their preferences and how the vendors are doing against each other. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you the behind-the-scenes view of the way we calculate the vendors here, which I will drag over to you now. Can you guys see this? I need to make the scroll bar visible. All right. So this is kind of what we track behind the scenes. So for every service, we look at a number of things. So we look at, I'll just go ahead and go through them. We look at the average delivery time of that service. So in this particular service, we're saying it takes an average of 3.41 days for a request to get delivered. We track the number of requests they got last month, the number of requests.
And they have up to 7 days on average to deliver, right?
That's correct.
So they're a little bit later than we'd probably prefer them to be, but they're well within their limits right now.
Absolutely. And then again, we'd love to have instant turnaround as much as we can, but we recognize that's not a super important factor. We look at the number of requests that failed. One thing that we absolutely try our hardest not to have is vendors that fail. Obviously if a vendor fails on a request, we give you a refund, but it also just makes us look bad and it makes them look bad, and it really doesn't make anyone happy. So we keep very close tabs on vendors that are not doing their work, and we take action algorithmically against them.
Yeah, so we used to have a much bigger problem with that, but we've really been able to rein it in now that the algorithm's kind of making things happen. So
I mean, our vendors basically know that if they drop orders, they are just going to get essentially the equivalent of kicked out because we'll stop sending them new orders. All right, so we track the number of links, and we track the number of unique domains. So in this case, we found out that this vendor has, in the last month has built links on 6,500 domains, which is pretty good. So on average, it looks like we're only putting about 3 to 4 links per domain total in an entire month. So that's pretty cool. We track a lot of things here. What this is saying is this is the average number of anchor texted links you're getting per request. That's anchor texted links on unique IPs and on unique C-class. And then we also track non-anchor texted links, again, per IP and per C-class as well. What we then do internally is we go pull the domain MozRank for every link that they build.
So we might want to talk about the difference between the C-class and the IP here, just for anybody who doesn't really understand what that is and why it's important that we track all those things. I mean, there's an issue because a lot of people will have, they'll have all their sites on unique IPs, but they won't have them on unique C-classes, and we think that Google tracks that. And the C-class is basically a block of IPs. So like when you're buying multiple IPs at the same time, it's often easier to get them in chunks together rather than getting them really well distributed, and it creates kind of a footprint if they're all together. So we just want to make sure that everything is as diversified as possible, and that's what we're checking here.
Yeah, what this does a really good job is of filtering out like people who have a quote-unquote blog network where it's really 50 sites all up on the same hosting. The way that we do this is we don't count duplicates as 0. The way we do it is we only count 1 link per domain per blast as counting. So if someone submits 3 links on the same domain, we only count the first one. So we're obviously protecting you from duplicates there. If they submit things that are on duplicate IPs, we will count them, but heavily discounted. And if they're different IPs with the same C class, we will again count them, but not as much. More so than if they had been on the same IP, but not as much.
Right. So there's a slight dampening effect there. And I would imagine that's probably how Google does it too, if they had to figure it out.
Yeah, that's my guess. I mean, again, the whole idea here is that we have no idea exactly what Google does, but we just want to enforce the best practices as best as we know them. So what we then do is we calculate out the domain Moz rank for every single domain that they return. It's a lot of Moz ranks because there's a lot of domains. We use the domain Moz rank because almost all links that we're building are going to be brand new pages, so there won't be any page level Moz rank to look at. And the reason we use Moz rank instead of page rank is that it's a couple reasons. Number one, it updates faster, and number two, it is accurate to decimal places as opposed to just an integer, which is pretty nice. So we take all that, all the Moz ranks, all this kind of stuff, and combine it together into what we call link power. So what the link power tells us is how much juice, for some way of measuring it, are we getting from that blast. And then basically, so that's kind of the main things that we look at. That's kind of the input data. We kind of boil that down into creating different signals based on delivery time, input links, duplication of URLs, duplication of domains, cost, and basically out of all this stuff, we spit out a marketplace rank for each provider. Now what I will do is I will show you. If you go to this page on our site, linkenberry.com/backlink-marketplace, you can get to it from here. It says link building service list. We actually show you these ranks. So I just showed you what kind of goes into the calculation behind the scenes. But if you just want to know, hey, what service is best, this list kind of breaks them out for you. The other thing I want to mention is, we don't treat these different signals all the same. Some things are obviously more important than others. The single biggest thing we look for is high Moz ranks on unique C-class IPs. The best vendors, by and large, are the ones who are going to be delivering that as much as possible. Beyond that, we also look at failures. If people fail, if they have any amount of failures higher than 5%, they pretty much don't get your orders. We want to make sure that the orders we send are going to be successful. Does that kind of help you guys? I hope that it does.
Yeah, does anybody have any other questions about that? I mean, I think that's the first time we ever really went into that much detail regarding that vendor algorithm. I mean, we definitely alluded to it a few times and kind of explained how it works in broader strokes, but it's interesting to look at. I mean, there's really, how many factors are in there? It's a pretty good number.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of factors in there, and some of those things are really abstractions. Like, you don't really see the Moz rank calculation going into that either. So that explains how we rank the vendors. But now I'm sure you're also wondering, so now they're ranked. What does that mean? You know, what does that mean to me? So let's try to bridge the gap of, we've got this list of ranked vendors and we've got these sliders. How does that mean? What am I buying? You know what I mean? So here's how this actually works. What we do is we calculate out based on your monthly spend. So let's say you're on a soldier plan, you get 30,000 a month, 30,000 credits. What we calculate out is we're going to try to spend 1,000 credits a day on average. It doesn't mean that we're trying to always shoot for that, but it means that on average, that's what we're shooting for. Then we look at your preferences based on these. If you've got them all set to the middle, it means, okay, we're going to try to spend 100 credits a day on each category. You know, if you had them set up differently, you might be, oh, let's spend 200 credits a day on that one and 0 credits a day on that one. So we kind of come up with a ideal spending per day, if that makes sense. What we then do is we take that and we go to the link building price list. So in this case, let's say hypothetically we got article submission set up here, and we're saying we're spending 200 a day, which is $6,000 a month. All right. So we come and look at article submission, and we say we want to spend $6,000 a month. So the first thing we do is we throw out any services that cost more than $6,000, because we don't want you to be allocated to a service that you can't actually afford. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense in article submission. But if we go to another category, like let's say it was wiki submission, the first thing we would do is immediately remove this one from consideration entirely, because it's just too expensive for you. And again, I should kind of explain here that vendors set these prices themselves. So we've even explained to the vendors, like, hey, hey, 8,000 credit guy, like, no one can get your service. Only our higher people can get your service. But he just didn't listen and set his price where it is.
And so, even beyond that, the higher plans are not going to really be getting very much of it at all, because it's not a good deal. So it's going to be factored into their vendor score before it ever gets to that point, right?
Exactly. So we throw out the ones that you just can't afford at all. Then what we do is we make an effort to use as many of the remaining ones as possible in such a way that you get the best overall value/diversity mix. And the way that we do it is this. We will spend the most of your credits on the number 1 vendor, then number 2, then number 3, then number 4, etc. The way that we do it is we actually calculate out a final score for each vendor. That we don't actually show the score on this page. It was on that final page that I showed you. I don't. Let me show you an anonymized category here. So here we have imagine these are the top 4. We calculated that number 1 has a score of 1.28, and this is number 2, this is number 3, and this is number 4. A lower score is better. So what we found in the case of this category is that we've got 2 vendors that are really good. We've got one vendor who's kind of okay, and we've got one who's really kind of pricier / worse than the rest. The way we do it is we take the reciprocals of all these numbers. I don't know how much algebra you guys really want to get into, and then we take the reciprocals of all those numbers, and those become the percentage allocations of that vendor to you. So what ends up happening approximately is you end up getting about 50% of this guy, about 40% of this guy, about 10% of this guy, and maybe like 1% of this guy. So you're basically getting 90% of your business is going to these top 2. We furthermore have a filter where if there's like one vendor that's killing it in a category, we don't want to just give him all your business. So we cap any given vendor at 60%. And that's to protect your diversity, basically, because the different vendors are doing different things. So I hope that kind of explains how we go from this list to exactly what we buy for you. We basically we come up with, all right, we want you to get 50% of your credit spent on that guy. Then we try to space that over time so that you're getting it as spaced out in the month as possible.
So we got 2 questions here that are interestingly divergent. One guy said, can you cut a vendor out completely, which currently I don't believe we can, right? But didn't we just talk about that last week, the possibility of adding that in?
We are considering adding that in. In the meantime, I would encourage you to write support and tell us which vendor you want to cut out and why, because if there's a legitimate reason, like if they're doing something wrong, we want to address it directly. You know what I mean? But we are working on that as a feature. I can't tell you when it'll be out, but that's something we are hoping to do.
Right. And then we've got a question from Joe, actually, which says, could we have more randomness baked into the vendor allocation? He prefers to spend a little bit more money in exchange for having more of the other vendors involved, because he would rather have more more diversity. I don't know why that word didn't pop into my head. He'd rather have more diversity rather than save a few dollars on per link blast.
Well, let me answer that a couple ways. First of all, diversity is baked into the score because we look at unique domains, unique IPs, and unique, unique C class, and we also look for duplication across blasts as well as a signal that goes into that score. So the guys who have low scores don't just have low prices; they have low prices and good diversity. If there is somebody who had a higher price and higher diversity, assuming that the extra diversity that he added matches the price, then he would have a good score too. The real reality is some of our vendors are amazing, some of our vendors are really bad. And at the end of the day, we don't want to be wasting your money on the vendors that are just really bad. And maybe I shouldn't say really bad, but like relatively speaking, you're not getting as good of a deal. I mean, and like here's a really good example, right? Like, 0.0001 cents per link or 0.0120. I mean, that's a big difference. That's over a 100x difference. Now, some people would say, "Wow, penny per backlink is so expensive."
The guys that are actually the worst, though, we just straight kick off the system. I mean, we've actually kicked off a ton of people because we didn't think that they were just in general a good enough of a deal where anybody should really be getting it. So if we think that somebody just really sucks, we just straight kick them off. So anybody who's on here, we're at least giving them a shot for a while, and we've seen some sort of quality in their links or whatever. And the second that we see something that we just feel like it's no good, we just kick them off.
Exactly. We're trying to shoot for a sweet spot between having a variety and also making sure that we only have the best, if that makes sense.
All right. Well, where are we moving next? What was the next? We were going to go to the anchor text diversity.
Yeah. Well, that's going to answer the question about Penguin that somebody had. But we'll do that. So let's talk about anchor text randomization. So this is the most important thing that needs to happen after Google Penguin. As you guys know, a lot of people in Penguin got hit with over-optimization penalties. So what we did was we have added some features kind of on top of Link Emperor to really randomize the anchor text that we build. So we have this is kind of a somewhat confusing slider, and I do apologize for that. But the idea is that there's 3 chunks of the slider. There's this red chunk, which is where we're building to your actual keyword. These are keywords with your keyword with a random prefix or suffix, and then these are totally random words. So if you come to this tab, what we recommend that you do is set the red bar to be kind of about like that, a good amount of random prefixes and suffixes, and a good amount of totally randoms. So, with Penguin, what people who really got slapped found themselves with they had like 100,000 links with the exact same keyword. What's cool about this is when you use this with Link Emperor, you're going to get so much randomization that it's going to be hard for that penalty to apply to you. So what we do with this random prefix and suffix is things like, let's say your keyword was dog treats. We would throw in things like best dog treats, cheap dog treats, fine dog treats, buy dog treats, dog treat reviews, dog treat website, dog treats for sale, things like that. So the keywords that we throw in actually are pretty cool because you might actually rank on them, which will help you out. The totally random words are words like website, click here, view my profile, things like that, like links that would appear naturally. And we actually got those lists from a couple people who helped us out. Some of the words that are sourced into that are words that were discovered as like most commonly used anchor texts. So that should help you guys blend in. So we got some questions here. Are the random keywords localized into the language of the campaign? Unfortunately, they are not. And our articles are also currently only in English. And that is something that we are kind of aware of. And
We could run all the random words through Google Translate. That wouldn't be hard.
Yeah, I mean, if someone wants to help us out with localizing the words, I would be up for that. I don't think that would be too hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, like, I mean, I never even thought about that before today. Like, there's so many random people with different scenarios in their link building, so it's tough. Sometimes we don't even think about stuff until it gets sent in as a support ticket or something. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate answer to that is just that we're an entirely English-speaking company. Our customers are probably 95+% doing English promotion, so it is kind of admittedly a small minority of our people. So it's kind of hard for us to prioritize that over some of the other stuff that we're working on, but it is something that we want to get into more. Brian asks, do we recommend 50% random? That's what we're doing right now. I don't 100. I mean, to be honest with you, we haven't exhaustively tested this. Maybe you guys have some better opinions. And we were gonna do some more testing of this.
It's tough. I'm thinking about pulling back on it a little bit. I mean, what you really want to do is figure out what your overall distribution is on your anchor text, and that will let you know personally what your threshold should be. I mean, if back in the day you were building all to the same anchors, then you can probably go for a while going really random. If you're a little bit safer, I mean, if you've been using a lot of Link Emperor with a lot of random keywords, then you're probably a lot safer off than a lot of people who have been doing, like an SE Nuke blast with the same 5 keywords for a year or two. They probably have a much bigger issue with it, so they might want to go a little heavier on the randomness. But it's something that you have to figure out for yourself. And I'm trying to think of what that site was that Dory had that told you exactly what your anchor text was.
It is linkdensity.com.
Linkdensity.com. If you want to go sign up for that. It's a free tool. It's really cool. It's made by a friend of ours named Dory Friend, and it pulls its information, I think, from Majestic actually, but it puts it into a much easier format. So if you've got any kind of Penguin questions or issues, or you want to just kind of see what your anchor text distribution is, go check that out, and it lays it out for you, which is pretty cool. So I would go based off that, but don't push it too hard. But at the same time, you don't want to go so random that you don't feel like you're getting the benefits that you used to be from your link building.
All right, and Lawrence says he's heard it mentioned that it should be 30% keyword, 30% partial keyword, and then he says that he splits the generic 10% to random and 30% to just the domain, like the naked domain.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I really wouldn't be surprised if the numbers that most people are coming up with are just pulled out of their ass, really, at this point. I mean, I don't know how many people have really been doing in-depth studies on one site versus another, specific percentages. And the difference is, too, you have to look at the keyword that you're going after, because every keyword is different, and some keywords allow for a lot more density than others. And you can actually, I believe, use that tool, linkdensity.com, to figure out what niche you're in and what your competitors are looking at. Because if they're going really a lot more high on their density, then you have a much higher threshold that you can move towards. Not to say that you should push your limits, because you don't want to get hit with that penalty, but it is keyword specific. So you can't just go and say 30, 30, 30 across the board, I don't think, and be very scientific about it.
It also depends on what you already said, which is where you are to start. If you started out random versus if you started out, stacked, would really make a big difference as to what you want to do in the future.
Yeah, and excuse my French from before. Sorry.
Yes.
David thought it was funny.
Yeah, the other thing that I should mention is, talking about just like the naked, using the naked domain as a link. The thing is, some of our vendors, you do sometimes get that just anyway. A lot of guys that are doing social bookmarking or forum profiles or a few other types of links, or press releases, some types of press releases, the only link you can get is a straight up naked link. So even though we don't have a category here for naked links, you tend to get them anyway, just from some of our services.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, I mean, you really have to think about if you're using Link Emperor the right way and you've got a lot of keywords that you're building to, you're going to be helping yourself out just right from the start without even using the randomization. This is just icing on the cake, you know. So I mean, most people did not get hit by that unless they were pretty dense with their allocations. So just play it safe and be aware of where you're sitting at.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, the stuff we're talking about right now is absolutely advanced level stuff. If you are a newbie, you can leave the defaults on all of these, and you will be safe. Because we have set the defaults.
I think most
to be
people
good.
be very safe with the defaults, and that just won't be a big deal. All right. Well, what's next? We want to just go to a Q&A? Is there anything else that we haven't really touched on yet? Why don't we go to Q&A and just try to scroll up and find some questions from across the presentation? Because I mean, we even had some good questions right in the very beginning that we didn't get to go to.
Sure, let's go through these. So Diego asks, how is indexing on links handled in the algorithm? We actually have done a whole bunch of research on this lately. We've got a whole presentation on it. We're going to show you kind of what we've done on that lately. But it's going to take probably an hour, so we're going to save that till next time. We'll send out another email about that, and it should be good. Does vendor credit price in any way translate to quality? Well, probably. I mean, the answer is that the ones that are really cheap, I guess it depends on, are you asking quality per dollar or quality overall? I guess this is Thomas's question. Does vendor credit price anyway translate to quality? Not always. The ones that are more expensive are often more expensive because the vendors are just inefficient. It's not necessarily because they're better. You know, the vendors, honestly, the difference between being a good vendor and being a bad vendor oftentimes comes down to things like how good is your list, like of the places that you post. You know, how good is the software that you're using to do the posting. You know, and all those things kind of don't really affect the price. You know, those are kind of just more just like questions about their overhead. So
yeah, the price is often something that they set in the very beginning, and then the ones that are more active will change it, tweak it over time based around kind of where they're sitting versus their competition. A lot of the time, if a vendor lowers their price by a certain percentage, they can pick up like 50 or 100% more orders. So a lot of the time, the vendors will be tweaking their prices just based around the competition to try and maximize the amount of money that they're bringing in per service. So that is probably the biggest difference there is just marketplace factors, but it's kind of on a service level. I mean, service specific level.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing that I really wish we had done was I wish we had started saving all this information historically, because you know a lot of you newer guys don't know this, but like when Link Emperor first launched, you know, the average service in our marketplace was like 3,000 credits. There was nothing cheaper than 3,000 credits. You know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, now we've got services that are like 100 credits, and they're really good. So we've done a really, really, really good job of like pushing these vendors to compete against each other, and just really drive down the cost while driving up the quality. And we think we've done a really good job of that, and we're going to keep doing more and more of it.
Yeah, I mean, it benefits you guys so much because, I mean, rather than having to go out to Black Hat World or Wicked Fire and individually shop for all these people or run stuff yourself on your own computer, I mean, you're able to trust the fact that we actually have an active marketplace that is keeping people honest with their prices. So, I mean, that's really was our end goal that we wanted when we first started Link Emperor, or at least when we first launched it, was that we just wanted to be having a real marketplace where people were actually competing against each other, which is pretty cool that we finally achieved that in the last few months. So it's exciting.
Yeah, and two other quick things. You know, I didn't actually mention this, but you know, I do want you guys to know that we do crawl all these links that get submitted, and if we can't find the link that they allegedly posted, we don't give them credit for it. So every single link that we talked about in that scoreboard is links that we have validated and have ensured are really there.
I don't know. It's a big deal though, because you know, a lot of these services will just give you a number of attempts at links, and if you're not in there and actually checking how many links you're getting, you have no idea. And that's the other thing that we don't often go into in detail about, but I mean, we actually check the number of links that we were able to find, so that's a pretty cool feature.
Joe asks if we use proxies while crawling those links. The answer is no, but we do use IPs that no one else would have known about. I guess you could figure out what they are. You could figure out what IPs are in our pool if you really wanted to. But that is something we haven't thought about. But honestly, most of these links are on, you know, other sites, so it'd be weird for that. It'd be weird, you know. The only way they could cloak is if they owned the domains. And if we ever caught a vendor doing something like that, this is actually another thing that's really important. If we ever catch a vendor doing something egregious or something that, you know, seems scammy, we will kick them off and ban them entirely. We did that to a vendor last week, and we will continue to do it if it ever seems warranted.
Yeah, we've kicked off a lot of vendors in the past. What question you want to go to next? Are you looking at one specifically?
Raphael complimented us on the customer support, so thank you very much for that. I'm sure Brett will be very happy to hear that.
Yeah. Diego's got another question. I saw the wiki contextual option that you have talked about. This seems to be very powerful considering Penguin. Would you place the kind of value on this that I do, or do you still think it's too expensive? Well, contextual links have been extremely important since before Penguin came out, and I think they are only getting, over time, a little bit more and more important. The nice thing is the contextual stuff, I mean, it's up in the air as to who thinks what in terms of how far Google is taking the contextual thing. You know, does it have to be within a full article, or can it just be within a sentence or two of text, maybe in a blog comment? And I think right now they aren't going too heavy on it, so I think that even if you have a good blog comment that has a couple sentences of related text wrapped around it, that's more than enough for a lot of stuff to get a kind of a boost out of it. But obviously getting wikis is a really good thing right now, and getting articles is still, I think, very powerful just in terms of the article submissions and stuff that we're doing. So I definitely like having those. And I mean, it's obviously, I think the best example of that is the private network blog posts that got hammered, because I mean, those are all contextual links, and yes, they have better page rank than a lot of other sites, or you know, on an actual page level, not a domain level. But I think it was the contextual factor that was a big one in why those were working so well, and why Google actually hammered down on those.
Well, and again, yeah, contextual means different things to different people, and exactly right. Who knows exactly where the line really falls? But, you know, we've still seen cases of sites that get entirely ranked just using social adder or things like that. You know, there's like pretty much no context in that.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Saab, I didn't see the first part of your question, so I can't answer the second part of it. Oh, here we go. Let's see. When you say number of credits assigned, do you mean reduce the 60K credits every? I still don't understand your question. Sorry, Saab. Let's see if you can clarify that. Glad to see a rank score for vendors now. Thanks. When are we going to get a more expansive database of PLR articles? We got asked about this on the last call too.
Yeah, we should just do that. We've been kind of dragging our feet on that and talking about it for a while, so we should just go and do it, I think, when we get a chance.
The thing about PLR is it's hard to find like giant packs of PLR. If anyone has any leads of good suggestions of really, really good gigantic PLR packages, we would be happy
actually, if you guys want to just send them in, I mean, go for it, and we will try our best to incorporate those. Or if you got ones that are specific to, you know, the niche that you're in, and it's not like, you know, insanely specific or whatever, I mean, we could probably look at just throwing those into our database. You think, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I really want to try to do it, though, at like a large scale. Like, I don't want to be adding 10, 20 articles. Like, I want to be doing like 10,000, 100,000. You know, a couple ideas we had. We could do some things like, you know, we've come up with other ideas for PLR content, things like scraping Wikipedia, things like scraping Google Books, you know, where it's actually before copyright and stuff like that. We've considered that kind of stuff. I guess we could always open that back up too, because that's not a bad idea.
I think we might want to go take another look at that. I think that is an interesting solution. that Google Books stuff. I don't know. We used to play around with that about a year and a half ago, and we kind of stopped for some reason. But I don't know. I think there was some good potential in that. Maybe. All right. What other questions do we have?
Is there a bulk way to edit target values? Currently, no. That's something we will consider. Do websites, okay, Lucas is a vendor, and he asks, do websites with Moz rank 0 better or worsen a service's rank? The answer is they do better it. Because so if you're trying to figure out whether, if you're a vendor and you'd rather submit you could either submit a service with 50 Moz rank 5s or 50 Moz rank 5s and 100 Moz rank 0s, the latter is better. And it's because it's going to boost your domain diversity by a lot. Because our customers want domain diversity, even if there's not PR. So, they really want both. So a blast like that would actually be really cool because it would give them some high juice links and then some just links for diversity.
Yeah, I don't think there's any penalty for a Moz rank 0, right? It's just additive if it's a higher Moz rank, right?
Yeah, you're never going to get penalized for as a vendor for adding an extra link in. It's like we don't look at the average or anything like that. We look at like the sum total. You know, and it's a very important point though, because like designing these algorithms for evaluating the vendors is really, really hard, because you want to make sure that nothing that we do ever encourages bad behavior, like let's build fewer links or anything like that. Lawrence asked about our spinning quality and said that he noticed that the quality of our spinning was not good. At the end of the day, we're currently spinning using the Best Spinner, which is a product by John Ledger that we kind of like. I know that it's not the best. I know that it may not actually be the best spinner, but it works really well with Link Emperor because it is very, very fast. We've looked into some other spinners. We looked into Word AI, but it was really hard for us to integrate it because Word AI was very, very slow.
Well, then we're running. I mean, we have to run the auto spin feature too. You know, a lot of people actually go on there and try and spin things by hand, which is good. But the problem is, you know, we're just running such a massive amount of articles that the only option that we have is auto spin. So anytime that you're running that, it's difficult.
Question: how well does Link Emperor work in foreign language sites?
Well, we've seen some very good results in the past from foreign language sites, right?
Yeah, we have a client who is killing it in Brazil, and I'm not going to say his exact keyword, but it's the Portuguese translation of a very, very, very big keyword. And he's doing really well with Link Emperor. So we've seen it work pretty well.
Yeah, I don't think there's any real issue with the language barrier that we've seen in terms of the link building.
Sav asked, do the totally random anchor text include straight up naked links? The answer is currently no. We're going to work on adding that at some point in the future, but you will get naked links just in general, no matter how you set that setting. Just because some of the sites like that we post to, like some of the social bookmarking and some sites like that, are always going to show them as naked. Is the anchor text randomization handled by itself? Yeah, it's totally good, totally automated. Does anyone else have any questions? We got a lot of people in here.
If you see that you asked a question before that we didn't respond to that you want, just paste it in again, because it's easier for us right now to just check the ones at the bottom actually.
All right, Dexter asks, can I cancel my subscription to Backlinks Indexer? It's hard for me to know how to answer that question. We used to actually integrate with Backlinks Indexer. The reason that we stopped is that Backlinks Indexer is very, very expensive when you calculate out the cost of it per link. It actually costs more per link by a lot than most of our services charge to build the links. So when I sat down and did the math, it didn't seem to me to be worth the cost in terms of the additional indexing that it got me. I'm not denying at all that it will get you more indexing, but I just don't think I think that money can be better spent on more credits.
And that's definitely something we should go into more detail with in the indexing presentation next time we do this, because, I mean, that's a very, very direct question, and it'll be more interesting once you can see the results of how well some of these links are getting indexed on their own.
Yeah, well, yeah, a little preview for when we talk about indexing is that the reality is a lot of these get indexed by themselves really, really well. And more interestingly, we know which ones those are and we're going to start sending more of your business to those anyway.
Right. And that's already built in, isn't it, in the algorithm?
Well, it's in the algorithm slightly, but I want to work on bringing it in harder.
Gotcha.
Now that we have more data.
Once we ask, oh yeah. Thomas asks, how do you know when you should move up to a higher plan? What volume for a soldier plan? That's a tough question. I mean, it really depends on the difficulty of your keywords and just kind of testing out over the course of, I would say, 2 months or so. Take a look at how many links you've been building across how many keywords, and then look at the movement within your niche. So if you've been seeing your pages move up a little bit, seeing some good results where you are, then sit there. If you're not seeing the results that you want to see, you might want to do a couple things. One, you could upgrade your plan, or two, you could decrease the number of keywords that you're going after, or else change it up a little bit and go after some easier keywords or something like that and see where you're at. Sometimes it's just a matter of, like I kind of said before, if maybe your domain's just not ready to rank very well in a certain niche or whatever. You know, sometimes certain niches have more difficult competition. So sometimes you just need to really build up a base level of strength in your domain before you can really kill it. And you know, sometimes, you know, Link Emperor builds a lot of links and a lot of good IP diversity and things like that. But if you're starting out with a brand new site, sometimes you might want to go and just get some higher authority links too, just bought in one-off blasts, or else just do some press releases and things like that. I mean, press releases are very good for starting out a brand new site. So I mean, sometimes it's difficult to tailor specifically what plan you need for what type of campaign you're going after. And usually what I'd recommend there is send in a support ticket and talk to Brett. And Brett's gotten very good at trying to help people out with that and figure out, specific to their situation, how many links they probably need or what kind of plan they need to be on in order to get some good results from that. Let's see.
All right.
What else we have.
Yeah, we've got a couple questions related. I guess you kind of just hit on this, which is that, like, how do I know if I should be on a soldier or a gladiator? Yeah, it's kind of a tough call.
It's tough. I mean, the best way that I know of is really sit there for a month or two and see what happens and pay attention to your rankings. And you know, if it's not working for you, then I would take a look at your site. You know, take a look at your keywords and take a look at the size of your plan and things like that. And I would probably send in a support ticket and ask for custom review.
All right. Someone asked about linking to the homepage versus to subpages. We recommend that you definitely promote your subpages. You know, I think I do for my personal sites like 15% to the homepage, and the rest is going to subpages.
Yeah, you want to absolutely go very little to the homepage. 15% is probably fine.
And it really depends on the type of site. So, like for an e-commerce store, you know, that much to your homepage might even be too high. You know, for a thing like Link Emperor, where the homepage is really the most important, we'll run a little bit more to the homepage.
Yeah, it depends on your site. It also depends on what keywords you're going after, how many keywords, things like that. Because sometimes if you're in a tighter niche and you're going after, you know, say you've got a mini site, then you can probably try to run more to your homepage. If you've got a bigger site or an authority site, you're going to be wanting to run vast majority of your links to your deeper pages. And you also want to remember that you want to build a certain percentage of brand name links, like you know, links with your own brand as the anchor text to your homepage too, because that just kind of looks natural. So think about that in terms of how you're distributing your links.
All right. Somebody asked about I want to go up from soldier to get more keywords, but I don't want to go all the way to gladiator. Or sorry, they ask, can you upgrade just the keywords? You can't upgrade just the keywords. You have to upgrade the whole plan. However, what you can do is you can buy 2 soldier plans and just have them both. You know, put one domain in one and one in the other. And then if you really want, we'll actually even combine them into one account. If you just email support, you can get like a double soldier. It'll just be twice the cost of soldier and twice the everything.
The double soldier. Lawrence asks, considering that my site has 100+ pages of good content, how should I proceed? If you got 100+ pages and you're trying to rank all of those, I might consider moving up to a gladiator or something like that. I don't know that the Soldier is quite built for actually trying to rank 100 landers, because I mean it offers you
It offers you
100
50. It offers you,
keywords,
yeah, 50
landers.
landers. So
Yeah, so obviously, if you got something like that, you're not going to be able to work with just with the Soldier. Or you could, I mean, you can rank some of your pages and spread it out however you want, depending on your budget.
yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, a lot of it is just going to come down to your budget, and
And it's true, like, I mean, it all depends on the profitability of your site. I mean, that's why you have to have that's why we have the value of the visit built into this system here, is because some sites just don't afford a certain level of link building like others do. See, sometimes you just have to face facts and say, okay, maybe I should work on the conversions of my site a little bit better, or maybe figure out a better offer so that I can increase the value of a visit and then come back and maybe move up to a new plan. Because the whole thing we did here is we think about it in terms of pay-per-click, right? Here's the battle with pay-per-click. The classic thing is that it's not just about the value of a click or whatever, because every single competitor has a different value, right? So you need to know how much a visitor is worth to you, and you need to be able to increase your back end to make each visitor worth more and more. Through upsells, cross-sells, affiliate offers, get them on your email list so that you can hit them up and sell them different things. I mean, the more that you can afford to pay to get somebody to your site, the better off you are. So this is really a classic PPC question: is how valuable is my site, and how much can I afford to spend on SEO at this point? So that's always just like an eternal tough question. Figure that out, and then that'll really help you in your own decision making on what plan you should be on.
yeah, I think a lot of people have an opinion that SEO is supposed to be cheaper than PPC, but I don't think that's necessarily 100% true. It's really just different from PPC. SEO is like you're really making more of an investment. It's like buying a house as opposed to renting an apartment. Like with PPC, as soon as you stop paying, all that traffic goes away. With SEO, as soon as you stop paying, you've kind of got whatever that you've built up to that point. So
Right. It's an investment. Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily cheaper, but if you're doing it right, it should be cheaper. That's why we're all doing this. I mean, it would be definitely easier to get good at PPC than it is to get really good at SEO. But the point is that if you can invest in yourself and your knowledge of SEO, and then invest in your sites in terms of having good SEO over time, then you'll be on easy street down the road. And it's just kind of a different mindset. Just like all different types of internet marketing, different mindsets. Some people are more short-term, some people are more long-term. And we're obviously more long-term. That's why we do this.
Lawrence, we do try to distribute your link building over the 30-day month. We don't always do it exactly right because we're trying to balance simultaneously distributing for individual people the load and also distributing the load to the vendors kind of evenly. And given that all the different people have different stuff and different people pause at different times and have different priorities, it's pretty much impossible for us to get it exactly, but we try to get it as distributed as we can. I kind of think that seems like it's the end of the questions. It looks like most people are kind of...
Yeah, we're slowing down, and we're coming up on 2 hours here, so it's been a long time.
All right. Well, I guess, hey, I just want to thank everyone for being on here. There is going to be a replay, assuming that we did that properly.
Yeah.
A couple things. You're going to get a survey after the webinar that asks a few questions about what you thought of it. But also, I just want to ask you guys right now, what did you guys think of the webinar? Was it useful? If you have any comments, drop them in there for us. And, just a question like, what are you interested in hearing more about? Because we have a lot of guest people that we could bring in, and we could actually go in and talk about some more of these things like conversions or email lists or, any of the kind of other things that we kind of hit on. I know we're going to talk about indexing next, it seems like, but just give us your suggestions, and we'll definitely take that stuff into account.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, we don't, there's only so much SEO that you can talk about at a certain point, so sometimes if you guys want to learn about other things too, I mean, obviously most people on our list are very SEO-centric, but there's a lot of stuff that we can look at that's kind of tangential to SEO that we can talk about too, and, do quicker webinars or whatever. So, I mean, yeah, if you guys have any requests, just send them in, and we're more than happy to try and do that. Robert says add more to your blog. Yeah, we should add more to the blog. We definitely been, I've been slacking on that, sorry.
Yeah,
We've been
the more
focused a little more on the webinars, though, which I don't know, I think people get a lot more out of the webinars a lot of the time than out of a blog post, just because there's so much more you can pack into something like this. But, yeah, I mean, it's absolutely true that we should do a little more blog as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to deny that we haven't been moving as fast as we would like to be on a lot of these things. You know, we're at that point in our growth where we're really spending a lot of time dealing with, you know, a lot of issues like HR and legal and all these other things that are not SEO that we, you know, but we're doing our best to spend more time on that.
Slackers. All right. Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks a lot for coming, guys. And, I mean, I had a great time. This is cool. I think this went really well. It seems like you guys got a lot out of this. So, yeah, just let us know if there's any feedback you got. Email it in or throw it into the chat box. And otherwise, it's been a good time. Thanks for coming.
All right, take care, guys.